Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost. This is Friday. It's May 17th. It's the TRU Community Gathering. We do this every week. We've been doing it for 209 consecutive weeks. This is the 209th. I'm here today to welcome you and to tell you a little bit about TRU. If you're just finding us, you're just stumbling upon us by accident in YouTube land or in our podcast. We are an arts service organization that is dedicated to helping artists and theater professionals to understand and better navigate the business of theater. We started off with a mission that really focused on producers, but over the years we learned that there are a lot of people that are producers that you don't think of as producers. A lot of the people that are in the room today, and possibly you out there, you may be an artist, a writer, or an actor, or a director who has stopped waiting around for somebody to discover you, and you've started making your own opportunities and producing yourself. So we are also here to support self-producing artists, which we love to refer to as SPA, because producing yourself is so incredibly relaxing. We know that. Yes, yes. We've been doing these conversations originally as a way of addressing the issues and the challenges of COVID and shutdown. We started April 17th, 2020. And now we're back to a new normal. Although I have to say the new normal is not it's not as appealing as the old normal in many ways. It's a challenging new normal. We ostensibly are back to live performance, and we're ostensibly having audiences come to theaters and sit and watch things. The truth of the matter is that the audiences are not really as abundant as they were pre-COVID. So we're still adjusting, and we're still figuring things out, and we're still trying to keep our business vibrant and financially feasible. So we've had a lot of conversations pre-live performance. We're talking about a lot of different things, but we're back to talking about live performance. And one of the topics that I always love to address, and I do it at least once a year, is festivals. Remember those self-producing artists I was just talking about? One of the ways that the self-producing artists can actually get their plays seen and get their careers moving ahead is by applying to a festival. That's a great opportunity for self-producing. I'm going to bring in people representing some of the festivals that are still active in New York. And I have to also say that there have been a lot that kind of we lost during COVID and over the past 10 years. But these are the survivors. So I want you to meet the survivors. I'm going to bring them into the room right now. I have to ask, there we go. I had somebody who was not supposed to be on screen, but we're back to the people that I have as my guests today. I have Gene Fisch, who has run something called the New York's Theater Festival. Clara Elser, I hope I'm pronouncing people's names correctly, and forgive me if I'm not, but Clara Elser is representing the Dream Up Festival, and also she's part of Theater for the New City. And Theater for the New City offers many opportunities, and besides Dream Up Festival, and I think if I'm lucky, she's going to talk about some of those as well. We have Jimmy Lovett from the FRIGID New York. FRIGID New York has taken on the banner of the New York Fringe Festival, which we lost. If you remember Fringe New York, they closed, I don't know, Jimmy probably knows when it was. It was six years ago, maybe. But they were one of the mainstays of New York's off-Broadway developmental theater opportunities here in New York. But now, luckily, we still have a Fringe Festival, and we also have the Queerly Festival. Is that right? Is that right, Jimmy? So we have the Queerly Festival, and you have a bunch of other festivals too we're going to mention. Cate Cammarata, many of you in this room know and love Cate Cammarata. She's actually part of TRU. She's 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 our literary manager now for, oh, I don't know, at least a century. Um, and she's got something called CreateTheater. Cate will tell you that 10 years ago, she told me to go virtual. And she said, Bob, you got to go virtual with TRU. TRU's going to become global if you go virtual. And I laughed hysterically. I said, oh, yes, sure, we're going to be virtual. Yeah, we're going to be global. Well, what she couldn't do, COVID did. So this is one of the reasons why we're actually here, and we have international audiences coming in. Right now, tonight, we have people from all over the country. I don't think we have anybody from outside the US tonight, but we do every week. So Cate has something called CreateTheater, and CreateTheater has something called the New Works Festival. It's not play, it's New Works Festival. And she's going to tell you more about that. And Suzanna Bowling, dear friend of mine, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I'm going to have some water. Get right back. Okay, there we are. Suzanna Bowling is an old friend of mine, dear old friend of mine. And she's somebody that I originally knew as a singer. She used to sing my songs. So she gets major points for that, because there's not many people that sing my songs. So we love her for that. But she's become part of the New York Theater Festival, which is a multi-layered series of events and opportunities for new writers. And Suzanna, why don't I bring you on, and why don't you explain what you do and what New York's Theater Festival does? Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can hear you. I can see you.
Perfect. Okay. So I own the Times Square Chronicles, and I became involved with Robert Williams, who runs the New York Summerfest and the New York Winterfest. But he's also started something amazingly new. It's called the International Theater Script Competition. And in all of his competitions, you actually win money. You're judged on the criteria of your work. In the international theater competition, you submit your script, and myself and 5 other people read it. We then critique it. We tell you how to help it. And then at the end of the year, one of the plays will win a week's production in New York City. And it will be filmed, it will be cast, it will be directed, everything in New York. But there's also money prizes as well. And it's a great way if you're not sure if your script is flowing or how things are going. I also became somebody that you could hire to judge your play. I'll come and write up about your show in a festival. I'll write about who you are, because most people don't. It's all about who you know. And if the theater community doesn't know you, you're kind of in a limbo. And in getting into these festivals, it's a very cheap way to get your work seen, to see how audiences react to it. They're in great theaters. And in the case of the New York Summerfest and Winterfest, when it's not Tony season, which it is right now, and your life is hell, I try and get people to see the shows. If it's a musical, I'll try and get like Van Deen to come see it, or other people to see it. If I think the show is ready to be
Are you mentioning Van Deen? Van Deen actually has a record label, and he actually produces recordings of most of the lesser known musical works that are done in our business, and also some of the ones that are pretty well known as well. He's done original cast recordings of some major productions, and he's a member of TRU.
And what's so great is that this year, unlike most years, almost every single musical that's on Broadway, not that they deserve it this year, but they're getting albums. They're getting their music heard because Van Deen and others believe that this should be happening.
Okay, I'm going to jump in for a second. I want to ask you something. On your website, it also says Musical Fest. I thought Musical Fest was something new as well.
Yes, in all of the Summerfest, Winterfest, and the International Script, it's all play and musical. In the case of Summerfest and Winterfest, it's also one acts that they'll put together like 3 to 4 one acts to be played in one night, and you still have a chance to win. As a matter of fact, last year, one of the one acts won because it was brilliant. It
Okay,
needed to be
so I want to give an overview of all of this because we're going to meet everybody, and I want everybody to give a little introduction about your what you do and what your festival is about. And then I'm going to actually start asking specific questions to all of you because there's certain specific information I'm hoping to get out of tonight's conversation. These are conversations.
Bob, can we ask me now, because where I'm at, because I'm in Tony season and I'm not at home, I'm in a restaurant and it's noisy.
Oh, we're not hearing your noise. We're not hearing the noise.
Really?
So you have a very good noise gate. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that, but you have a really good noise gate.
Thank you.
Okay. I do want to bring everybody else on at least, and then I can come back to you. So so one of the things that Suzanna said that I think if you didn't pick up on it, it's one of her differences in terms of her festivals, which is that there are money awards for everybody. Now, the other thing I want to remind everybody about is that in all festivals, unless I'm wrong, and you will correct me if I'm wrong, in all festivals, you are asked to bring in and self-produce your work. So there is a certain amount of money that's going to be involved to raise money and produce your work. The people that are in the festivals
have to produce it. In the international competition, what's so wonderful about this is you're not going to have to do that. If you win the prize, nope, you're not going to have to do that. We're going to do it for you.
But I just want to keep that clear for everybody that this is a situation. Self-producers are self-producers because they produce themselves. So I'm going to actually also ask my guests if I ever say anything that you want to disagree with, just raise your hand and let me know. Okay. So, but I want to start with that basic understanding for everybody. You have to find the money to produce your work. These are opportunities. The truth of the matter is, and my experience is that you will need much less money to produce in a festival than you would if you're producing on your own. But there are pluses and minuses that we can talk about later. Suzanna.
When I coach young playwrights.
Oh no. I want to go to everybody else. I have to introduce
but there's
everybody.
a way to make money for that. It's easy.
Well, okay, everybody's going to stay because Susanna's going to tell us how to make money self-producing because that's something I want to know that.
I actually do know this.
Okay, we'll get to you. I want to introduce everybody else. Actually, Jimmy, tell us a little bit about FRIGID New York. I didn't know that you were the Fringe. I mean, you did a panel, one of these community gatherings for me last year or the year before. I think I called it Yes Virginia, there is a Fringe festival. Because most of us thought that the Fringe had closed and that it wasn't part of New York anymore, but it is part of New York because FRIGID New York has created their Fringe festival. So tell us about that. Tell us about Queerly, because I know that you wanted to focus on Queerly today.
Yeah. So the festival that now is New York City Fringe, we have been running as a Fringe festival for 15-ish years, I would say, something like that. We did not use the word Fringe out of respect for the then Fringe, but we are members of the Canadian Fringe Association and the American Fringe Association. It's a lottery system. There's no curating of any kind. All of the box office money is going back to the artists. Very standard Fringe operations. This year we were way bigger than we'd ever been. It was almost twice as big as last year. We were at 3 venues instead of 2. We had 46 shows. And it just incredible audience turnout. It was an absolute blast. An incredible amount of work, but
let me
very.
just, I want to bring something up for the people out there who may not know. The Fringe New York, which the ones that you didn't use that word as out of respect for them, they were adjudicated. And so they weren't actually able to be part of the Canadian Fringe circuit or that you're part of. Am I right about that?
I never worked with them, so I don't know for certain.
Oh, it was adjudicated. And so your Fringe is closer to the actual Fringe model that is used around the country and around 2 countries, Canada and US.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the general like international model.
Right. So I just wanted to clarify that. So tell us more about Frigid.
Yeah, so we operate under St. Mark's Theater in the Lower East Side. We run not quite 24/7, but pretty close. We rent the space, we do co-productions. So we'll have something that runs a couple weeks, we'll have something that runs a single night. We have 2-3 shows a night in the space, so we keep very busy. And we also do 7 festivals every year.
Okay, name them.
All right, we've got the Fire This Time Festival, which is African-American early career playwrights. We've got Astro Genius, which we're less involved in the production of that. We're sort of support staff for that festival. New York City Fringe, the Queerly Festival, Little Shakespeare, Days of the Dead, and Gotham Storytelling. I think that's everybody.
Impressive, very impressive. So what do you do to keep busy?
Oh, not much.
Not much. So that's an overview of Frigid. So thank you for that. I'm going to keep moving so we can meet everybody. Clara, thank you for coming. I've known Michael for many years. You came and you I think you did a panel for us because Michael couldn't make it. It's actually longer ago than I thought it was. I thought it was just a couple years ago, but it's like 2017.
Really? Was it that long ago?
Yeah, I think it was. I looked it up when I heard you were coming. So tell us about Theater for the New City. Actually, yeah, tell us about Theater for the New City first, and then tell us about Dream Up.
Well, Theater for the New City has been on the Lower East Side. It's very eclectic space. There's 4 different theaters. There's always something going on there. So we have on their website, you can see they have submissions year round for productions in the spaces. They do readings. So if you have a show you want to do, you can rent the space. But yes, the festival started to fill a gap during their summer season. They do a street theater season, so their physical space has been open, and they've been doing it for I guess about 10 years now. They took last year off for the festival, but we're back this year. And we are currently taking submissions. It's going to run from the end of August into September.
When is the submission deadline?
It is the May 28th. So you have
I'm going to jump in for a second and just say the reason why I wanted to talk about Theater for the New City is because not only do they have 4 spaces, they have 4 of the most affordable spaces in New York. So if you don't want to be in a festival and you're thinking of producing yourself on your own, you should be looking at Theater for New City's spaces, and there's others that we can talk about too. But today we're focusing on festivals, but I wanted you to know that. So back to you, Clara.
Yeah, so we're currently taking submissions. The Michael Scott Price is head of the festival. He reviews all of the materials, and you are I don't know, would you want me to go into specifics about dates and like how many performances and box office and things like
No,
that?
we'll go
No,
through
okay.
everybody on those specifics. Yeah.
Okay.
But I just want, again, I was just trying to give everybody an overview.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's and we are I should say, like, primarily looking for new works that have not been produced in New York City. Just something to keep in mind.
Okay. By the way, Eric Rothman is asking me to put in, it's not going to happen, me to put into the chat the name of the person, the festival contact, and do you guys, have you guys all put in an email already into the chat so that people can reach you if they need to?
No, I did not do that.
Okay,
No,
so
but I can.
so yeah, so everybody's going to do that for you, Eric, since you asked. And I'm going to move, let's see, because I think Gene is still, Gene, did you finish putting it in yet?
Oh, I was typing in right now.
Okay,
I
I'm
can do
gonna,
it, but
I was okay. I was going to go to Cate. I'll go to Cate first, then while you put your information in. Cate Cammarata.
Hey,
I feel like I know you.
slightly. I think I've been with you now as the literary manager for 11 years, right? No. Yeah, 11 years. No.
Okay,
Yeah, because
something
2012,
like
I
that.
as a reader, 2013, I became the literary manager. So yeah.
So, kind of as a recap for a second, Suzanna's with New York Theater Festivals, which has Summerfest and Winterfest, and also this international play competition. So, and one of the things that's unique about her is that they give money awards to some of the plays that do well, that are
And the director, and the
Yeah,
director, and the
and the
actors,
actors. Yeah,
and the stage
yeah.
managers. Mhm.
So the thing about Frigid that's interesting is that they do so many festivals. It's just amazing. So if you're wondering where to go with your play, basically take a look at any of the festivals of anybody that's here and think about, what is it that they do. And the specifics are so right in your face for Frigid. I mean, it's like there's a gay festival, there's a women's festival. Whatever your play is, you can probably find a spot for it there. Dream Up Festival. Actually, Clara, I'm going to ask you to say, in general, what are the types of things that would be submitted to a Dream Up Festival?
Oh gosh. I mean, we've had musicals, we've had solo shows, we've had clowning, some circus. So we have a pretty broad range of material that we accept. But we're primarily looking for new work that has not been produced in New York City.
Yeah, and basically that's the same thing that we do at TRU. We when people submit to our play reading series or musicals reading series, we say we don't want shows that have been done before a paid audience in the New York area. And the reason for that, because I know Susanna's wondering about that, the reason is that a lot of times it just the audience is gone by the time it gets to us, if it's been done in the New York area. So it's so important to all of these festivals to get in a healthy flow of audience members, and we all try to figure out ways within our own festivals that to maximize the likelihood of success for all the people that come into our festivals. And I'm going to come back to Cate now. Cate, you created CreateTheater. You created CreateTheater, and let's talk about that, because that's your unique positioning, is that you have what I would call, you build a, you're a community. You're a theater company or yeah, I guess a theater company that basically is building a community of writers.
We started out that way. 2016 CreateTheater came about because I, as a dramaturg in my consulting practice, I was working with so many writers and I wanted to get them to know each other. And I was on Zoom in 2016 because I was already working on 3 different continents. And so when the pandemic came in 2020, it was a no-brainer to just do readings every Monday night. So we really exploded in 2020 with the readings, the Monday night reading series. So in 2021, at the end of 2020, we got Zoom bombed. I don't know how you ever escaped getting Zoom bombed, Bob, but it's not
I know you
fun.
always tell me about that. It's never happened to us.
So count your blessings. So what I did then was to form a theater company of writers, a writers residency company now that we call it, called the Experts Theater Company, where we hold classes because I also teach in a college, teach theater in a college. So we have classes, we have coaching groups, writing groups, and then it's kind of like going back to school because you get to know your cohort and you become friends and you feel like you have an artistic home. That's the idea. So come 2022, we had so many scripts that are ready to invite an audience in. We had our first festival in 2022. And because I'm an off-Broadway commercial producer, I produced like 7 of them, 6 new plays, 6 new musicals, and 1 new play. And that was exhausting during COVID. So it was really a roller coaster and it was beautiful productions at Theater Row, but I needed to dial it down. Didn't want to do that every year because really the value of a festival, I think, is to get attention, to draw in an audience, to test it out. So because CreateTheater's Expert Theater Company and now the New Works Festival is a developmental theater company that develops new plays and musicals, I wanted to focus in on readings because a reading is a low bar into the New York audience to try to get some feedback, attract some attention, get some eyeballs on it, like a potential producer or an investor or whatever. We have an adjudication process. You work closely with me as a dramaturg to try to make it the best it can be to go up. And then just, it's a community. So you know all the other writers. Back when we actually did it in 2022, I charged tickets and the writers got 83% of the ticketing revenue back. CreateTheater just took $5 per ticket because it's really all about the work and all about the writers. When I was little, I wanted to be another Ellen Stewart, La Mama, or Joe Papp, but I'm trying to make it happen. In the 21st century, it's not as easy as it was in the 20th, but here we are. So that's basically
the thing I want to clarify with you is that your New Works Festival started out as full productions, full productions. The thing I want to say to everybody is remember that when you go into a festival, you're sharing space with other shows. So in general, and you can disagree with me if you disagree with me, you feel free to. In general, you have to think in terms of minimal production values when you go into a festival because you have to move in and out of your space really quickly. So we call them full productions, but they're not. If you were producing your play on your own, for instance, you might spend more money on set and costumes because you have the theater space. You're renting it for the week or for 2 weeks or for 2 weekends, whatever you work out. But in the festival situation, although in all fairness, there have been people who have done remarkable things that they could load in and load out in 15 minutes. But in general, you want to realize that you're sharing space. So you had a single set. What was interesting about Cate's festival the first year was that they had designed a unit set that everybody was able to use. And I thought that was an interesting concept. So talk about that for a second, Cate. And let's talk about why you moved from doing the full shows to doing I think readings now. You're doing readings right now.
I am, because we're a developmental theater company. So the festival concentrates on development. And we did then too. It was a remarkable experience. Everybody that participated in the 2022 New Works Festival had a beautiful production. In fact, 2 of them were recorded, and now they're on the main platform of streaming musicals because they were so well done, so well produced. And that's The Golden Cage and Rewind. You can see our unit set, and we had 2 set designers, 2 lighting designers, 2 sets of everything, projectionist, sound design, and it was a remarkable experience. And what I found was that most writers never get to the production stage, so they had no clue on how to get all those decisions. So they didn't have to go out and find their own designers. I played producer, and I was able to introduce all these creative people to the writers. The directors helped. They were all experienced. And of course, we were coming out of COVID. It was a wonderful experience. The reason why I dialed it down is because if you remember that place at the end of 2021, we were just getting back. I was hiring designers, but in November and December of 2021, we were to go up in April 2022. By the time I got to February, everybody was asking twice the amount of the original people that I hired, and I had to compensate everybody equally. And the price of everything just kept going through the roof, skyrocketing. Still, I'm very proud to say, because I gave 83% of the ticketing revenue back to the writers, everyone received about $7,000 back. That was an average.
Okay, so we did the ladies first, so so
May I
Jane,
say
it's
one
up
more
to you.
thing?
Okay,
May I say one more thing?
yeah.
So to defray costs, it's a reading series now, but we do have 1 play and 1 new musical that's fully funded by either CreateTheater or Prism Stage. So we still have that through our partnerships. That's all I'm going to say.
Now we're going to move to New York New Works Theater Festival and Gene Fisch, which is clearly different. It's clearly different in terms of your goals with it, and also how it has functioned in the past. I don't know where you are with it now, Gene. So you're going to have to update me on what you're doing with the festival.
Yeah, no, great. And in fact, you bring up my first point. What I was about to say is, I know several of the people, or a couple of the people anyway, who have just spoken, and they're great. And I think one of the things that everyone in attendance should really do their kind of own analysis on is every festival almost has its own. It serves different needs, and every festival is important. So if you find you're at a certain stage and you want to do ABC, then you go to this festival. If you want to do or achieve another goal, you go to another festival, because each festival has its own strengths that are appropriate for different stages in the writing process. I know for us, I started it back in 2014. Really purely where I was just paying for it for a group of friends. We had 20 playwrights, rented out a theater at the time. It was called the Electra Theater. It was a 199 seat theater in the Broadway box. And I happened to be, I had a lot of friends who were in the community on the Broadway level. So I brought in a bunch of Broadway folks to really look at their scripts and go see the shows. And it was just a lot of fun. And as it evolved, I started following around the NYNWTF Festival. Like, I would go whatever theater they were at, I would rent out that theater around that same time, but really kind of try to absorb as many of the costs as I could. I mean, we were at the Duke Theater, and then we were at what was called at the time the Acorn Theater. Last year we were at now NYNWTF is no longer in existence, but last year we did our own thing. We were at Carnegie Hall. This year I have one show that we're doing because it's just a busy time. We're going to Bucks County Playhouse in Pennsylvania. That's more of a different spin-off of the festival, but we're sponsoring that. So it's it's really evolved. Right now, we've gone from doing probably about 40 shows in a festival, give or take 35 to 40. We've kind of slimmed it down since the pandemic because just subsequent to all of that craziness happening in the theater community with shutdowns and what have you, I think a lot of the festivals, or I'll speak for myself, I saw a murky landscape, and to really put down a deposit on the Duke Theater and not be sure if there was going to be full seating capacity, 6 months after I put down that deposit, it was a risk that I just really wasn't ready to take. I go into it expecting to lose money, but I want to kind of enjoy the festival with that situation. And if there's going to be a seating limitation, or gosh forbid, a new thing of COVID was coming out and you lose the whole deposit, that wasn't something that I was really ready for. So it's evolved somewhat now to pretty much a 5-show, 10-show situation. Probably going to go back to 35 shows next summer. So that's just a little prelude. Each script is reviewed by a Broadway producer, usually a few Broadway producers, but always at least one. And I don't know, I just try to make it a lot of fun and keep it as inexpensive as possible. It's just a great time.
So you withheld one piece of information, unless
Yeah.
it's changed. Your festival used to have a 30-minute excerpt
Yep.
from a full work. You
Yep.
weren't doing full works.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. Yes. So what we would do is we would have each of the participants condense their show to 30 minutes. And that served a couple of purposes. I think at one point you're actually seeing really the best musical numbers and the best pieces of the show. I think a lot of times in the life cycle of a new work, you have parts that need a lot of extra attention than others, and maybe they really aren't ready. So the first piece of that was we really had each night 5 performances or 4 performances of some really solid stuff. I mean, I was always proud of it, but I found when you didn't have to, muddle through 90 minutes of, things that are really kind of in the air, the condensed 30-minute versions were really more than a little entertaining. They were great. The real reason that I kind of thought that up was, as Susan pointed out, it really is about getting people to see the shows. And at the time, I had a lot of friends entering different theater festivals, not the ones on this call. And they were really kind of befuddled because the audiences were relatively thin, and they'd be performing at times that weren't always appropriate for their friends and family to come see the shows. And I wanted to do something where, okay, everyone's performing at prime time and it's as close to a full house as possible. I know I've done my share of festivals, and at the time, and I remember there was one, it was just an odd time, and I felt bad for my friend because I think she had about 8 people or 9 people in the audience. And I just thought, all right, if I'm going to create this project, I want it to be fun. I don't want it to be stressful for anyone. I want it to be a great time. And part of that includes having a bunch of people come and enjoy your work. So I supplemented probably about half the tickets for each night with friends of my own, and just try and make it as fun as possible. So yeah, that's a good point. We did condense everyone's participation to 30-minute projects, and I mean, my perspective is it was a smashing success because people actually showed up for the shows from the Broadway community.
And the other thing that's unique about your situation is that you have more of a commercial point of view than some of the other people on the panel today. You're always looking for work that's going to be commercial, that's going to maybe have a possibility on Broadway. God forgive me for saying that.
Well, I will
Suzanna,
correct
Susanna.
I'm about to be kicked out.
Are you being
I just-
kicked?
I'm about to be kicked out. I didn't realize this place closed at 6. So I just
Oh.
want to really quickly say, first of all, I'm sorry that I have to leave. But second of all, the way to get your show funded and to get people to your show is to do Kickstarter and GoFundMe. Agents, actors, producers, they troll these things. And if you sell say your tickets are $22. You ask for 25 and they get 2 tickets to the show. You've pre-sold your show, plus you're making the money you need to produce it. Second of all, do the show if you're in a festival, bare minimum. And if you can, do it non-equity, because the ruling of having to keep those actors in costs a fortune. If you're trying to find out where your show is at, trying to get clips of it, because you need clips. It's like an actor with a resume. You need clips of your show. That's the reason you do a festival.
Okay, we may have some different
I
points of
love you,
view.
and if anyone wants to talk to me, I own the Times Square Chronicles. I'm easy to find.
Okay, thanks, Susanna.
You're welcome. Bye, guys. I'm so
Bye.
sorry.
So does anybody want to respond to any of that with the raise of
Actually-
hand?
Could I throw one thing out there, Bob?
Sure.
Just as a small correction, actually, you know, each night we had a pretty diverse, I would say a good 50% of our shows were not commercial. In fact, it was always about the writing. If you had decent writing, I would honestly say many shows in the festival are not going to make it to Broadway. But, you know, I think, for instance, The Coward won one year, and that was a show that was completely artistic. It was actually picked up by 2 producers. The New York rep, Gail Waxenberg, picked it up and wanted to incorporate it in their season. But I would say of the successes, yes, we have 2 shows that are legitimately on their way to Broadway, but we've had probably about 25 shows that have been off Broadway or kind of away from that element. So just to correct.
But the only thing I want to say about that is I'm trying to give everybody a unique positioning. And
I understand.
One of the things that's unique about you is that you make an effort to put the shows in front of commercial producers. And
That is true. Yes.
That's on your website as well.
Yeah.
You basically are offering it as an opportunity to get the work seen by people that are producers in our business. That's not
Yeah.
necessarily the goal of my other guests. So
Got you.
So let's
Yeah.
let's
No,
move-
I only
let's
mentioned
move-
I didn't want to discourage people who were like, you know, writing about artistic, because some of those writings are my favorite ones. So I like reading those. If you whatever comes in, we love.
So one of the conversations we're not going to have tonight, but it's a conversation that would be worth having, is how to make a full length work into a 30-minute presentation, because that almost defeated me. I was going to be in your festival and I couldn't figure out how to do that. So that's another talent that a lot of people have, and it's a good one to cultivate. And I'll in my copious free time, I'll try to cultivate that skill.
I would
But,
recommend if somebody, you know, for outside the festivals, when people put together readings, I think one of the obstacles is, as someone who doesn't know the playwright, okay, I always want to cater to the people who have no clue who you are. You know, it's really hard to sell them on coming for 90 minutes. And this is a reading. This has nothing to do with festivals now. But like, it's really hard to sell somebody who doesn't know you or doesn't know your work to really carve out a significant portion of their afternoon. So when you do a reading or what have you, try and make it as appealing as possible, because honestly, the person knows within 5 or 10 minutes whether or not they want to support your work. And
So-
if you can, what's up?
So this goes to the question of what are your goals when you're going to be in a festival? You're talking about very specific goals. I'm going to open this up to Clara, Jimmy, and Cate with a raise of your hand if there's something you'd like to say. But what do you think are the goals that can be achieved in a festival, and specifically in your festival? And do you have any words of wisdom in terms of how people should approach putting their show into your festival that would make them successful? And define successful. Anyone want to jump on that? Clearly, no.
No, I mean, I would say, I think sort of like understanding the constraints that you have, the goal is sort of to get the piece in front of an audience. It's not necessarily to do the biggest grandest version of the show. You know, you're going to have 15 minutes of load in, load out time. You're going to have one tech rehearsal in the space and that's it. And so I think I've seen participants maybe forget that and have that kind of come back to bite them.
So they try to do too much.
Yeah, they try to do too much.
And they become like they can overwhelm themselves with that.
Mhm.
Jimmy, how about you in your festivals? What kind of advice could you give to people in terms of being successful in a festival? Let's also talk about what successful is.
I mean, for us, generally, I think we really our idea of like which shows are successful pretty much just hinges on butts in seats. Like, did people see the show? Excellent. It's nice if those people paid full price for their tickets, but if they didn't, we'd rather they were there, and we'd have almost all of our shows on a sliding scale. So like, we'd rather somebody be there who paid $5 than no one be there at all. So that's really our big metric. I think as far as like success of getting into our festivals, a lot of them are very sort of community centric. But honestly, the biggest thing is just like, and this is going to sound so patronizing, and I apologize, read the material about the festival, because we have so many people who just don't and are shocked that they have 15 minutes to get out. And we're like, this was available on our website for months. So just knowing what you're getting into, I think, is very important. And also knowing those constraints from my times as an artist on the other side of things, I find that knowing the constraints is kind of more fun. Like if someone's just like, do anything, you know, what does that mean? But if someone's like, do this, then you got to figure out how to do it. And then it's a game.
Well, let's talk specifically for a second. The title of this conversation gives a clue. I mean, I think that the purpose of what we're talking about is development. If you have a show that doesn't need to be developed, if you have a show that you don't think needs to be read in front of other people because you think that it works absolutely perfectly as it is, you can't get as much out of this situation. This situation lets you hear your show. This lets you identify the places that are working, the places where the audience gets lost. It's invaluable to get your show up in front of an audience. As a writer, your show is not a show until it's up on stage in front of an audience. It's something in your head otherwise. Cate.
Yeah, so what's success? You got a good script. Starts with that, right? Theater 101, Aristotle, the plot comes first. So we open our doors June 1st for next year, because I read the script, you come into our community, or not. Sometimes you're just sponsored by one of our partnerships, but then we do the work with you. I'm a dramaturg. So, and I'm also a producer. The script has to work. So you work all year, then you're able to get a reading to see how it plays in New York without spending a lot of money. To me, that's success. Does the audience laugh? Does the audience cry? Is the audience with you? It's a success. Now take that working script. Let's try to get it, move on to a regional off-Broadway.
And it's just another thing I want to say as a playwright who's lived through this, having your play performed and having it on your resume gives you more credibility as a writer. It also gives more credibility to the play if you can say that you had a successful run of the play in the Fringe,
We also give
New York
awards.
Fringe Festival. Oh, you give
We also
awards
give
too.
awards. Yes, we have a
Okay,
panel
so
of adjudicators, one investor, one who served on Drama Desk. And those awards really help our past participants. If you are able to carry away an award, you know, it goes far.
so you've
Yeah,
given the
we-
impression, whether you meant to or not, Cate, that you pay for the shows to be done, but that's not true. People do.
That is not, well,
Okay, so explain that.
yes, sure. Sort of subsidized. So there are one play and one musical that are completely paid for with our partnerships. The play is paid for through the CreateTheater Prison Partnership. The musical is paid for because it's developed upstate in SUNY Portland, the college. And then I bring it down and I pay for a professional music director. I pay for the space, etc. So one play and one musical every year is fully supported. Otherwise, it's subsidized by my work with you as a dramaturg. And yeah, so that's that. But the playwright is supporting it and paying for the space for the participation fee.
Yes. Okay. And which is generally true with festivals. I mean, Theater for a New Audience does not pay for the shows that come in. I mean, people have to pay for the thing that needs to be emphasized is that although they're going to be paying some sort of venue cost, it's nothing like what the venue itself would cost. It's a participation fee that makes it possible for Theater for a New Audience or FRIGID New York to actually afford to have these spaces available for you for the festivals. Jimmy, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so we do have a participation and application fee for Fringe, since the artists are taking 100% of that box office, but that is not true for any of our other festivals. We do a box office split for those, so there is no application fee, there's no participation fee. You know, we've got your tech, we bring you a tech, we bring you a front of house person, we bring you about 3 hours of tech rehearsal. The rest is on them, but
yeah,
you know,
you're still paying for your actors, you're paying for your director, you're paying for your musical director, you're going to pay for any sets and costume or props or anything. I just want to keep it emphasized. Anybody that's going into a festival situation or a self-producing situation, you're going to spend money. There are ways of doing it so that it doesn't have to cost what I've met so many people running TRU for 30 years. So many people who come up to me and say, God, I wish I talked to you before I did my show. I would have saved like thousands of dollars, which is true. Everybody who doesn't know how to do this tends to spend way more money than you need to spend. But nevertheless, you have to expect to spend some money. You have to be ready to invest in yourself. Gene.
Yeah, hi. I was actually going to wholly endorse what you just said before you finished saying it. You know, I would almost look at putting yourself in a festival. I think Jimmy was astute enough to say that, you know, getting people to see your show, getting butts in the seats. And, you know, I think seeing the festival as an opportunity to see reactions to your work on a grand scale is a very good objective. And to do that, you don't have to have like the most elaborate sets. You know, I referred to a show a few minutes ago, and they had a couple of chairs on the stage and a table. And afterwards, I mean, there were several producers or several people, we'll just take the word producer out of there. There were several people who really gave them some incredibly positive feedback and wanted to help them develop their shows. So don't look at the festival. I mean, don't look at it as something, gosh, you got to spend $25,000 or all this crazy money. Minimalist works, you know, it doesn't always have to be grand.
In general, for your festivals, do people use, if they're, okay, assuming that they're going to use union, which they may not, is this basically a showcase situation, or a contract that would be comparable to the equity showcase contract? Gene, well, you're doing 30-minute reading, 30-minute
Yeah,
condensations of the pieces.
Yeah, but you know, some of the shows insisted on, you know, doing equity. What we did, we would work out a letter with equity. It's like a letter of arrangement where they would present some guidelines as far as the amount of rehearsal time and what have you. But it was typically it was much more affordable. For instance, one of our letters of agreement was you could have equity actors in the show if it hadn't been performed within 12 months, and you gave the actor $100 or $125 per performance. And I think it was $16 an hour for a rehearsal, capped off at a certain amount. So, you know, it doesn't have to be the showcase. I mean, you can get a LOA from Equity if you have shows in your festival, or if you, as a participant, want to use Equity actors.
Jimmy, do you have shows that come in and use equity actors, or is it all mostly non-equity?
It's mostly non-equity with the exception of The Fire This Time. We, due to some things I won't get into, we cannot, as FRIGID New York, be a producer on an equity showcase code. So if someone wants to bring in equity performers, they're kind of on their own for that. We can help them navigate it, but we can't sign the paperwork. But we're a 45-seat basement theater. There's not a lot of equity coming through.
Oh, and the other thing I haven't asked you is, are there theater spaces that you usually use, or I think you were saying something. You had 2 and now you have 3, but I don't know if you said where your spaces are.
Yeah, so we used to operate 2 venues. Now we're only operating 1 year round, which is under St. Mark's in the Lower East Side. For New York City Fringe, we rented space at Wild Project and 14Y, and then also used our home venue.
Wild Project is my favorite.
It
I
was, oh
love
my
the
God,
Wild. It's
it
a
was
great theater.
such a great theater. Their staff is so sweet and lovely. It was a great experience. I actually have to run in just a second. Can I plug like 2 things real fast?
Sure.
One, our upcoming festival is Queerly. It opens on June 13th. Tickets are available now. That one's my festival. And we are currently looking for submissions for the Little Shakespeare Festival, which is Shakespeare shows, Shakespeare-inspired shows, Shakespeare-related adjacent things.
I know there's a play in this room that is like lighting up right now. I won't mention her name, Alyssa Bell. I won't mention it.
Yeah, if it'll fit in USM, we want to hear about it. I'm just gonna put the link to the application in the chat, which I accidentally just sent to one person, but I will send to everybody. And we would love to hear from y'all. Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I gotta dash.
Okay, so thank you for being with us. We're going to continue a little bit, and I think we'll also may be able to have some of you meet people afterwards. But okay, so we're done, and then there were this is the Agatha Christie community gathering, and then there were 4. Oops, now there's and okay, now we're back to 4. So Clara, there's the thing I want to communicate to people is the fact that the Dream Up Festival is a great opportunity. It's a great festival. It's been around for a while. Theater for a New City is also so supportive of new work, and I just want to make sure people know that they should at least look at you and look at your theaters and come in and talk to you or talk to Crystal, who knows, because I've seen so many shows that have gone through development through your spaces.
Yeah, I mean, I should say I don't work for theater for the New City. Michael has basically just hired me to help out with the festival.
Okay.
But yes, so it is, I put a link to the website so you can look at all the specs for the different spaces they have. But yeah, they do things all around, all through the year. They are very supportive of artists that they connect with. I've seen them bring back shows for second runs. There have been shows that have come from the Dream Up Festival that have gotten longer runs during their regular season. Shows come back, playwrights, if they have a playwright they like, they'll put up a lot of their work. So yeah, it is a very open, supportive environment for artists who are looking to put up new work.
And it is also by definition a very downtown space.
Yeah,
It's got it's got a vibe.
it definitely has a vibe. Yeah. And it does, I will say, attract a certain kind of like quirky downtown demographic.
Yeah.
Someone who probably has a rent-controlled studio apartment in prime real estate that has never left the Lower East Side. Yeah.
Ever.
And I say that with love.
Of course. So I want to go back to why we do this, you know, why we as writers do this. The other thing I wanted to mention, because we didn't really say it, is that getting your play into a festival and being part of a festival can sometimes give it a little bit of more credibility. It gives it, you know, a street cred, you know. But the thing that I always like to remind people of is that when you're part of a festival, you will be part of a marketing endeavor that encompasses all the shows, but you must never depend on the festival to market your show. I say this even if you disagree with me. I'm saying this. You must be responsible for marketing your show. The Dream Up Festival will have information going out about what they're doing. You need to still bring in your audiences. I mean, there is some audience that Theater for the New Audience, the Theater for the New City can bring in. Oops, TNC, not TNA. And Cate, you also put out materials about your whole festival, but you really do depend on the individual shows to get their audiences in.
Well, it's kind of like the True Voices. You always said that you bring in about 30%, and like 60% was, you know, more of the followers and the lovers of the writers. So I think that's always that way.
So it is your responsibility. I just want to make that clear. The other thing about this is you can get a little marketing power behind you by having a show in a festival. You can talk about it having been in the festival. You may be able to get reviews. You may be able to get, if not reviews, you may be able to get audience reactions. I always tell people, if people tell you how much they love the show, have them put it in writing and use it and quote them. Quote them in your marketing materials when you're trying to promote your show going forward. I mean, sure, it means more if you say that the Times reviewer loved your show than it does if my mother said it was great. But you pick and choose who you ask to give you quotes, and sometimes you can put together something that is of interest and then makes your show a little bit more interesting going forward. I see a hand raised by Gene Fisch. I see a virtual hand. Is your virtual
I'm
hand?
learning these as I go here. It looks like a nice hand, I suppose. Yes, you know, one thing I really want to emphasize, I know from the festivals I've been at and the people on this call, a lot of the festivals have opportunities to meet their fellow community members and meet the people who, if there were adjudicators or industry people who were there. I have to emphasize, because I know our festival is very heavy on that, and each night we try and sponsor like a gathering where everyone can get together and talk about your show. Take advantage of that. I mean, very few times does somebody walk in, see a show. What they'll do is there are very few times, and then like take the time to follow up with the playwright. A lot of times they'll leave, like, wow, that was a really good show. But in the stage that most of these playwrights are in, they want people to help them in some way, shape, or form, if for no other reason than the quote that you just solicited. So, you know, develop a relationship. Like if the person comes to you and says, hey, you know, I thought your show was great. Oh, awesome. Do you see a lot of, like, cultivate the conversation, because checks and help just doesn't fall in people's lap. You know, it comes from the relationship. And then maybe next time you have a reading for that show, you know, like I've been to several of Cate's readings. I love her readings, you know, and it's like one of those things, like, you know, someone will say, hey, you know, I was in your festival. Do you remember we had this nice conversation? I now have a reading at like Cate's CreateTheater community. Would you come listen? Sure. I mean, during the pandemic, I did that all the time, you know, because it was virtual and I could multitask. But like the point is, develop the relationships. Help doesn't fall in your lap without you just putting up your show. Take it. Like, get to know the person and have them follow your work as it evolves. And that's my big piece of advice.
And my big piece of advice is manage your expectations. Make sure you know why you're doing it, why you're going into a festival. Talk about what you want to achieve and talk to somebody who knows whether you can achieve that or not. There are goals that are achievable. There are goals that are dreams. So basically the Dream Up Festival would support the dreams, but nevertheless, there are things that realistically you can achieve when you are part of one of these festivals. Cate, you were going to say something.
So I'm going to follow up on you, Gene. Why do this? Why do a festival? So I have a reading festival. You guys have showcases. Why do this? Well, one, you come out feeling like a professional, and that's no small stuff. Two, you connect with the New York theater industry. You want to feel like a pro, hang out with pros. You feel like a writer, a theatrical writer. I've had my show in New York. For us, you can come away with some awards, put it all over your website, put it on the script when you send it out. And then you come away with knowing, one, I'm a good writer. Two, I know all of these people now. Three, I feel like a pro. New York has approved of me. And that's no small thing.
Well, on that note, I want to ask if there are any questions from the room that I missed. Jay, are there any questions? And I want to encourage you, everybody in the room, to please, if you have a question, ask. I can't have these people here much longer, but I think they can answer a few questions if you ask them. If you ask them now.
The only question I have is Eric Rothman. Susan Crawford had one, but everyone was answering it in the chat. So yeah,
Sure.
Eric Rothman, do any of your festivals or any places provide a place to present and develop something like this? Oh,
He has a one-man show.
Eric-
He has a one-man show that is a cross between tech convention keynote, political campaign speech, and more. He's big with extended reality. So I don't think that extended reality necessarily is a given for any of these festivals, but I guess you can do, I don't know. What can he do? How much can he do within your festival? I mean, with Gene, you're gonna have 30 minutes to do your show, Eric. Cate's gonna do a reading of it. Clara is gonna offer you an opportunity to put up a production of it, but I don't know if we know enough about it. I mean, it sounds like it's perfectly feasible for Dream Up Festival. So we can start by saying you do solo shows, right, Clara?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Eric, do you want ask anything more specific? The answer to your question is that everywhere can provide you a place to develop a piece like that. It's not that unusual. There are a lot of people who develop one-person shows, and every one-person show has its own identity. And I don't think yours is going to be any crazier than some of the other things that have been developed by people. What is the ballpark amount folks spend on their shows in each festival? So do you know that, Clara? What the ballpark amount?
You know, I don't off the top. I mean, it varies, I would say, widely depending on the show. You know, if obviously you have a solo show that's gonna cost probably less than a 5-person musical. Yeah, so I don't think I could give you an accurate depiction of like what the whole budget would look like to do a show.
Gene or Cate, do you have any ballparks? I mean, I can tell you what I spend in a festival. I was in the Fresh Food Festival. I was doing a musical. It was a 4-character musical with flute, cello, and piano. And my main goal, and by the way, I want to go back to this. Make sure you know what your goal is when you go into these. My main goal was I wanted to hear whether the music as I had written it was working for the 3 instruments and the 4 voices. And so I needed rehearsal to do that. So I could have done it as a reading because I only did 2 performances, but instead of doing it as a reading, I did it as a showcase, a 2-performance showcase, because that gave me 125 hours of rehearsal space, and I was able to do it. We had minimum set. It was mostly on book and mostly with choreographed music stands actually, but it was done beautifully. I had a great director, Katie Pettit, and I spent $9,000. I think that's lowballing it. I think that's, but I'm the cheap guy that you want to go to and ask, how can I do this for $9,000? And I can sit down and maybe help you find a way to do it. But I think that more likely you're going to be spending more like 15 or 20,000.
Not for a
For
reading,
a production. Yeah.
right, not for a reading festival.
I mean,
So
I would say in ours, I mean, we've had several solo shows where the playwright was the actor in the show, and no set. I mean, it was basically lighting. I can't imagine that person spent. I mean, those people spent more than a few $100s, even if that. I think in some of our bigger shows, a lot of times in the non-equity, they had friends of theirs, because as Bob correctly points out, ours are 30-minute performances, and everyone gets, at least a couple of performances. And if they progress, they get more, but, they'll have a couple performances. A lot of times, I think our costs, I did a survey, and a lot of times I think the cost, if they had a set, it would turn into a couple $1,000s, because they had to create a set. But other than that, I think for our festival, we try to absorb as many of the costs as possible, with the exception of the actors and the sets. And obviously the directors and choreographers and things of that nature. So I guess depending on your relationships and, how grand you want to make the show, I really want to impress. This is in the hands of the participants. Like, if you don't have a lot of money, don't think you have to have this grand. You don't need a grand production. This is not your commercial debut. This is an opportunity to see your work on stage and make sure it works, get it in front of people who love theater, and look at it like that. Because I know in NYNWTF, I heard a lot of stories. I had a pal of mine, he raised over $100,000, which he spent on that show. That's a different situation than the festivals that are out there today. Don't think you need to spend crazy amounts of money, because you don't.
I'm glad you
No, and
mentioned
I
NYNWTF.
would-
Yeah, NYNWTF was notorious for very expensive productions, because it
don't-
became very competitive. Because shows had gone to Broadway from NYNWTF, everybody wanted to make that happen, and they spent all this money. I saw one that cost $100,000, a roller skating one. Kate, you were going to say?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I have plays and musicals readings, because we're getting the same audiences that used to go to NYNWTF, but you want to check out the work before you pour a ton of money into it. You don't want to burden the development. You just want to see if the thing works and then get it out. So average would be for a play, $4 to $5 grand for a reading. Musical, it pretty much starts at like 6. So it depends.
So I just want to point out to everybody that Clara posted some great information about Dream Up in the chat. So make sure you check the chat. Susan Crawford, you wanted to give us 3 budgets, I think.
Yes, and I was in the Dream Up Festival of Clara the last time they had one. And so I would say we spent about, it was definitely under 5,000. But one of the big expenses, you had to pay a participation fee. But a big expense was rehearsal space. So just if TN's Theater for the New City could, help with rehearsal space in their own space, that would make a huge difference. But this was my first re-entry into theater world after a long time. And, it was fabulous for me. It was baptism by fire, but it was an amazing experience and has catapulted me into further experiences. And so then I was in the Chain Theater Winter Festival, and that was lower cost because they did subsidize rehearsal space. So I think you have to figure it's going to be anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 minimally for the festivals. And then don't tell mama, don't ask me what that came to. But that was a great experience too.
You thought it was going to be a money-saving experience, and it turned actually out to be very expensive, or relatively expensive. Don't tell mama. By the way, the reason mine cost $9,000 is because I had three instruments. I had cello, flute, and piano, and I had to pay good money to get people that were good players for that. So that was where a lot of my money went.
Musicians are always expensive. More than
I want to say that we had our first cabaret festival in December at the Midnight Theater, and that was minimal, because we didn't charge anything, because the Midnight Theater didn't charge anything. And so some people caught on, and they had their friends sing their songs and perform their music. And it was a great deal because they got the exposure and they were able to live stream it. So.
Well, excuse me.
Hello, Bob. Can I just, Jay said my previous question had been answered, but it really hasn't, which is about, and this has come up many times, but we now have many of the people who are participating about the, world premieres and how everybody wants to be the world premiere. So if you're in a festival that has you as the world premiere, every new play exchange thing that comes across my email says previously unproduced. So why does everybody want everything previously unproduced?
So we could start talking about that till tomorrow.
Next forum.
Yeah, I mean that's a big question. And Suzanna was saying much earlier, and you'll see in the chat she said things about this. She's very annoyed about the fact that everything needs to be a world premiere.
Exactly.
I kind of answered that to a degree. I basically said that if you're going to submit to my series or to Cate's series or anything here, you're submitting, and we're all hoping that you're going to bring an audience in. And if you've already had it done in this environment, in the city, it's harder. It's just harder to get people in. It's harder to fill the seats. So that's one of the reasons why we want it to be new. But when one of us produces a show, including the theater for a new city, that does not constitute a world premiere necessarily. You can call it a world premiere, but there are different levels of production. And a regional theater in Illinois should not be looking at a production that was done at theater for the new city and say, oh, that was done already, I can't call this a world premiere. I mean, you can call it regional world premiere. It's a level of production. I think when you're doing a regional theater level of production, they have no right to say, we won't do your show because it was done and somebody paid $5 to see it. So that's my opinion.
Correct.
I'm sticking to it.
Correct.
I'm just curious if Clara has a response or if Gene has a response, because you're both running festivals and
I said Bob's correct. That's the rationale. It's butts in the seats. And if you just did it a month ago, and a lot of times festivals, really hope for some cash flow with, something to help support the costs.
God forbid.
Yeah. Well, I know it's kind of it just doesn't happen, but nonetheless, you like to hope. And I think that, I know that was how it was explained to me when I was first starting to put this together and talking to people in the community. That's why regional theaters, before something goes to Broadway, a lot of times they're in Seattle or they're in California or they're in Connecticut at the Playhouse. They're far away from New York City, far enough to where, when it premieres on Broadway 6 months later or whatever that timing is, you have a whole new contingency to come see your show.
Yeah, I just in the chat, I pasted what the Dream Up website says about the premiere thing. So it is really about New York City premiere. And if there have been major changes since it was done in New York City, it's not a deal breaker. So if you know anything about Theater for the New City, there is a flexibility to it, I will say. So I would say, like, if you've done something in New York City and maybe you've made some big changes for it, like I wouldn't let that discourage you from submitting something to it.
I agree with
So-
Claire, actually. Yeah, as long as shows evolve. I mean, every year it's a whole new show practically. I mean, yeah, it's on our website that's one of the criterion of, like, look, nothing, make it a new work. But I mean, we're incredibly flexible as well. And I know Cate is. I've seen some of Cate's shows that I've seen them around. I mean, everyone's flexible if it's good work and the people have good energy, and you just want to get the art out there.
Okay,
Don't
well,
stress over it. Don't stress.
I'm gonna say a few words to wrap up on YouTube, and maybe people can meet you guys and ask you questions individually if you can stay a little bit longer. It's very late though. I apologize, but let me wind up on my YouTube. So I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank my guests today. I want to thank Clara, Cate, Gene, Suzanna, and Jimmy for being with me today and having this conversation. I make it a point to have this conversation at least once a year, because everybody is always discovering the world of self-producing, and there's a constant flow of new people coming in and going, how do I do this and where do I do this? So these are some of the places where you can do it, and I hope we talked a little bit about why to do it. I want to just emphasize, have a goal. If you're going to do it, if you're going to produce yourself, know what it is you want to get out of it. Have a check-in with somebody who can tell you whether or not that's a realistic goal, so that you have realistic expectations, so you are fulfilled by doing it rather than disappointed. So I want to thank my audience. I want to thank my TRU community for being with us again. Every week I see you guys. I see at least 25 to 30 of you every week, sometimes many more. So I'm going to keep doing this. If you're out there in YouTube land, I'd love you to come and be part of the room. Please consider just email me and I'll put you on the list, and you'll be invited every week. Email me at trunltd@aol.com. It's trunltd@aol.com. And I'll gladly invite you to join us every Friday. And if you want to give us a little support, a little help, that would be helpful. It's getting a little harder to do this for free for everybody. This is pay what you can. And fewer people are paying anything. So we've been doing this pretty much for free for the last couple of years. If you want to help us to thrive and keep doing it and have money to pay for things. Oh, money to pay for things. So that go to TRU Donate, trudonate.com, trudonate.com, and please donate whatever you can, or consider joining as a TRU member. That's very helpful for us. TRU membership is another thing that keeps us going. That's one of our streams of income that we depend on. So come back next week, come back the week after. I do this every week, every Friday, and I don't plan on stopping. So there. So I see you all hopefully next week and in the weeks to come.